Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tipoff 2024-2025. Ron Poniewasz is joined by Larry Kelly, member of the Luxembourg Arbit Kelly and George law firm, also our sponsor. Larry is assisting Ralph Blundo this year on the Newcastle High boys basketball staff. He's a former Shenango varsity baseball coach and currently a Penn State Shenango assistant baseball coach. Looks like he's got his Penn State Shenango gear on.
It was the first day of practice today, and I got my gear on. It was great to see the players. I really haven't seen them in several months, and they've been working hard and lifting weights. And man, a couple of those guys look completely different. So we're excited up at Penn State Shenango. We're going to have a great team this year.
Getting some long toss in, are you?
Well, no, I didn't get any long toss today, but I will before it's over because, part of my job is to throw batting practice.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm good from 45 feet. You back me up any farther than that, I'd be in trouble.
Sounds like home run derby there at Penn State Shenango.
That's about right.
All right. This week on our segments, we have a young lady that really had a couple of nice games last week for her team. We'll have our middle segments where we let Larry Kelly loose on the Red Hurricane Minute. We'll have a couple other topics as well. He can expand on some topics, give us his coaching knowledge on a couple things. But first, Athlete of the Week. It's Wilmington High, 5'6" senior guard, Leah Krarup. Last week, Leah Krarup played 2 games for the Lady Greyhounds. The first one, she had 25 points in an 83-45 win over Conneaut Lake. She backed that up with 16 points in a 54-51 win over Lakeview in regulation. In that game, she was very big down the stretch, including 2 of 2 at the foul line with 13.2 seconds left. That closed the scoring, so that put the game at 54-51. In the fourth quarter, she was 4 of 5 at the foul line, and she finished 8 of 10 at the stripe for the game.
Got to make foul shots if you're going to win close games. I mean, that's kind of been the golden rule forever. And she had quite the week, 41 points in 2 games. And again, truth be told, I think her 16 points against Lakeview in a 54-51 victory, probably more impressive than her 25 against Conneaut Lake in a blowout. But, fourth quarter points are huge. Fourth quarter foul shots are often determinative on who wins the game in a close game. And she did a little bit of both last week and deserving of Athlete of the Week.
Yeah, if you can make free throws, you can play for me any day, that's for sure. And she went to the line 10 times and knocked down 8 of them at different parts of the game, too. 4 or 5 in the fourth quarter with the game on the line. So that means she was 4 or 5 the remainder of the game. Very, very even keel.
Got to make foul shots in crunch time, man. I've watched so many basketball games that have turned on a team's either ability or inability to knock them down at the end of the game, because chances are you're going to the line. And some of the memories that I have are very, very celebratory, and other memories that I have are a little bit painful. But hey, listen, they're trying. Kids are trying. It's just it's a real art to be able to knock them down when the fans are screaming and the place is rocking, and to be able to stay in your routine and block out the noise and make the shots is something special.
Sure. Wilmington now going into tonight, they're currently playing right now Monday night, 7-1 in District 10 Region 1-1A, 2A, and 14-1 overall. Their lone loss game against Kennedy Catholic, and obviously Kennedy Catholic is quite a basketball team.
Well, yeah, they tend to recruit very well up there. So, but again, this is another program that's turned it around. It wasn't so long ago that the Wilmington girls were struggling to stack victories, but I think Mike Jekovic went from the boys program to the women's program, if I'm not mistaken, just a few years ago, and that started the turnaround. So I tip my hat they've turned it around. Again, it wasn't so long ago that a 500 season for the Wilmington girls was considered a good year.
Yeah, and they're going to lean on Leah Krarup down the stretch. Again, she's a senior. Plenty to lean on, Larry. She's well over 1,000 points. By now, it might be up around 1,500.
That's a boatload of points. Listen, that's to get 1,000 is really special. To get 1,500 puts you in an elite category.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that is Leah Krarup. She is our athlete of the week for her 25-point effort against Conneaut Lake, backed up by a 16-point effort against Lakeview. And Lakeview is a very good basketball team, too. They have a very nice record. So she is our athlete of the week, Wilmington's Leah Krarup. Don't go anywhere. Larry Kelly's going to tell you all about the Newcastle High boys basketball team. He'll do that next, right here on Tip-Off.
We all know there's an advantage to being the home team, to playing at home. And at LGKG, we have been your home team for personal injury cases involving automobile accidents and workers' compensation claims for over 90 years. At LGKG, over 10,000 clients have trusted us to represent them. We know how to present your case to a Western Pennsylvania jury. We know what makes them tick. We know how to win.
Okay, welcome back, everybody, on Tip-Off. This is our Talking Points segment. Larry Kelly has experienced the Newcastle boys basketball program for another full week, and he's got a lot to tell you here as the Red Hurricane gets ready to take on another key stretch here with 2 weeks left in the regular season. Larry, the floor is yours.
Yeah, every game's a big game. We're doing this on Monday. We have Seneca Valley tomorrow, being Tuesday. It's really for first place in the section. They have 2 losses. We have 3. And last week was a tale of 2 cities. We lost on Tuesday to Woodland Hills. Woodland Hills is struggling in the section, but they played a very good game against us, Ronnie. They did. And they got a super athlete, Scoop Smith, on their team. He went off for 26 points, and we had a hard time guarding the ball in that game. We had a hard time with our transition defense. And once again, I say this all the time, in a close game, not so much in a blowout, but in a close game, the team that gets to the line more often is the team that wins, because that means you're running good offense and playing good defense. And that's what happened against Woodland Hills. They went to the line, shot 18 foul shots. We shot 6 in that game. But then on Friday, we turned it around. Maybe our best defensive game of the year against Butler. Our on-ball defense, and I've talked about it, we struggled this year, but not Friday night, boy. Our guys were up and guarding the basketball as well as we did it all year. And when you guard the basketball well, that does a lot of good things for you. It makes the next pass a little more difficult. It keeps the offensive team out of the paint and doesn't allow them to run good defense or a good offense, because we're playing good defense. In the Butler game too, we got some scoring from really players who we're going to need scoring from. Maybe his best game of the year, Chase Lemon hit 3 enormous 3-point field goals, because they were playing us a triangle and 2 defense, whereby they were guarding Damian Harrison and Ralphie Blundo man-to-man, and the other 3 guys were playing a triangle zone. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it very difficult for Damian, and it's going to make it very difficult for Ralphie to get open looks, but it will leave open looks for some of the other players. It's imperative that they knock them down, and that's exactly what we did. Again, Chase Lemon hit 3 3-point field goals that really were huge and big in the game. And as always, he played really, really good defense. We rebounded the ball really well. Damian Harrison has been a beast on the boards for us in the last week, even in the loss against Woodland Hills. Wow, he keeps offensive rebounds alive, does a really good job. And, of course, the other players, Kyrell Harris played a really good game for us on Friday, and Kai Cox is Kai Cox. He's just every game in and game out, he creates scoring opportunities for himself and for other players on the team. So we need to repeat that performance we had against Butler And if we do, we will be successful tomorrow night. We need to guard the ball. Seneca Valley runs very, very good offense. And, they'll backdoor you. They'll slip screen you. We worked on that tonight. It starts and ends with our defense at Newcastle. Always has since Coach Belundo's been there, and it always will. And I think our guys are ready. I'm looking for good things tomorrow night.
Yeah. Last week, as you touched on, lost to Woodland Hills and then backed up by a very huge win over Butler. Going into that game, Larry, Newcastle had to gut it out on the road against Butler for a 2-point win, scoring late, I believe, as the clock expired. Going into that game, from somebody that's not affiliated with the team, just an observer, you could easily say, boy, I don't know if they're going to beat Butler the way they've been playing, especially that loss to Woodland Hills. And it's not normally how you play on the court or on the playing field that day. Games are won in preparation and in practice. And Ralph Blundo said that they had 2 really good days of practice.
Yeah, we did. We did have 2 really good days of practice. I say this time and time again, and you laugh at me. It's laser focus. Because at Newcastle, one of the things that have made us successful has been our ability to execute defensively, because we spend a lot of time watching film and picking up on the tendencies of the other team. I've always said we know their offenses better than they know their offenses. Mm-hmm. But, in the day before the game, when we're reviewing those plays that the opposition's going to run, our guys need to be locked in and laser focused. And we were Wednesday and Thursday in preparation for Butler, and it showed up on Friday night.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as you touched on the 2 games this week, at Seneca Valley on Tuesday, Seneca Valley comes in with an 8-2 section mark. That is Section 1, 6A, and they are 11-7 overall. Newcastle is now 7-3 in league and 13-3 overall. Seneca Valley defeated Newcastle on Newcastle's home floor 57-54 in the first half of league play. And then Friday, Newcastle entertains Pine Richland. Pine Richland is 3-7, 5-12. But what we've learned from looking at records, you can't just say, okay, well, they can roll the ball out there and win, because there have been a couple teams that have really played well against Newcastle.
Well, we lost 2 games in a row. That hasn't happened too often.
Right.
Northfield, who at the time was under 500 in the section, and Woodland Hills, under 500 in the section. We lost. And that doesn't happen very often. But in 6A basketball, all of these teams are good. They all have players. And so we have to come to play. And some of our guys have been under the weather. We played 2 games without Jaden Schaefer last week because he was sick. And he's been a big part of our team. But I'll tell you, another guy that really, really stepped up was Quaylen Davis. Quaylen played a wonderful game against Butler. He started like the defensive energy by taking a charge early in the game, finished the game with 12 points, a boatload of rebounds. Quaylen's played well for us when called upon, and he really played well in the game against Butler.
The one area that was mandatory for that win against Butler wasn't so much that it stopped a brief 2-game losing streak or 3, whatever it had been. It's the fact that, Newcastle needed to have a clean sweep against the team. They're starting to, have a lot of, splits right now with teams. And, when it comes playoff time, you want to be able to have more sweeps than anything so you can bolster your playoff position.
Yeah, seeding is big, as you know. And we're spoiled. We've always been a 1 or a 2, it seems like, each and every year. And we still have a chance. If we can win this section, we're going to get a pretty high seed, because this section is tough. But we have work to do. We're on the road tomorrow against Seneca Valley, and then we're on the road at Fox Chapel. We took care of Fox Chapel at home, but they're going to be a different team on their home court. So, look, I was really, really happy and impressed with how we played on Friday night. And again, it started with our defense. Our on-ball defense was really, really something special. We rebounded the ball really well. And we blew out a pretty good Butler team. I mean, this was a 23-point game, and nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw that coming. But when we play like that, we're capable of beating anybody.
Yeah. Fox Chapel is the other school that factors into possibly a section championship down the line. So it's the three-headed monster right now in the section: Seneca Valley, Newcastle, and Fox Chapel, as section play winds to a close. February 10th is the committee meeting. That's when they'll get together and brainstorm and release the pairings. The playoffs officially start February 13th. The top 5 teams in the section advance to the playoffs, that being Newcastle section. That's top 5 teams in sections of 8 teams. There's the sections that have 7 teams, you get 4. And this section happens to have 8, so the top 5 will advance.
Yeah, we're going to make the playoffs, but again, we want to make the playoffs playing our best basketball of the year. And Friday was a stepping stone. It was our defensive play on Friday was as good as it's been all year. It's going to have to be good tomorrow, though, because Seneca Valley's good. They're good. They run good offense, so we got to play good defense.
Nothing gets past Larry Kelly, as he says Newcastle will make the playoffs. We can confirm that Newcastle has clinched a playoff spot.
Oh, there you go. I mean, come on. But I said this before, we play to win championships. We don't just play to make the playoffs. We play to win championships, and that's the mindset. That's the culture at Newcastle. And, a lot of that is attributable to Coach Belundo and the rest of his staff. We've been very fortunate, in that the staff has been pretty much consistent from day one. Jason Dunalak's been there from day one. Billy Humphrey's been there from day one, and that continuity is important.
Okay, Larry, help us out here a little bit. Bring us some of your coaching knowledge. Last week we had very rough weather that forced a lot of teams or schools to do virtual learning. There was no school for a lot of schools. And then when you have basketball games and you have a team that starts out maybe losing 18-15 at the end of the first quarter, and they put together a 35-point second quarter, you ask the coach, what happened? Why were you able to put it together in the first or in the second quarter? And they say, well, we didn't have school today. Okay, well, what does that have to do with anything? But help us out, Larry.
Well, routine, Ronnie. Routine is important in everybody's life. Whether you're working as a sports reporter like you, I'm certain you have a certain routine that you follow day in and day out. But it's really important as an athlete. And for a high school kid, you normally get up early, you go to school, you're in class all day, you're locked in, you're energetic, you're moving around. When there is no school, you get up late, you probably lay around most of the day doing a lot of nothing, spending time on your phone, and that's why when there is no school, a lot of times we try to have a shoot around somewhere midday just to get the kids up, moving around, getting their blood flowing, and getting them in a sort of a quasi routine. I think that's the biggest factor. Again, you're out of your routine, you're laying around all day, you're not moving around, you're not getting your mind locked in. And when you don't do that, oftentimes that shows up on the court at 7:30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you always hear coaches first thing they'll say is, we don't make excuses. Also, same thing from coaches. No school today. That's it. No school today. That's what we're pinning it on. No school. Okay.
Well, I don't know that it's an excuse. It's just why it happens. I mean, and it happens so often that it's more than just happenstance. That it happens that way. So I think if you talk to a lot of coaches, when there's no school, they get a little nervous. And I think most of them try to then have a shoot around midday just to get the kids up, moving around, and somewhat locked in.
Larry, I don't know how much you pay attention to the rest of the county, boys and girls action, outside of Newcastle. Obviously, you're very busy with your assistant baseball coaching duties, your job with Ralph Blundo and the Newcastle boys basketball team. So I'll ask you straight up, how much have you been following, the county basketball?
Well, because of this show that we do, I follow your game stories and the box scores in the Newcastle News every week. So I got a pretty good feel about who's doing what and how they're doing it.
Okay. How important is it for a team to be, as coaches will say, going into the playoffs, quote unquote, battle tested, to be in tight games, to know how your team is going to do? How important is that?
Well, I think it is important. And maybe we saw, and I heard this time and time again today when I was driving to work and listening to the radio, Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know, they won 10 or 12 one-score games in a row. And every commentator was saying the same thing. They've been there before. They know how to get it done. They're comfortable in those settings. Hence, they win 10 or 12, I don't know how many one-score games. I think the same is true in basketball. It's good to be tested because as a coach, you need to know when the pressure gets so high that you can't spit, who can you count on? Mm-hmm. Whose hands should the ball be in? Who can you count on to go to the line and knock down foul shots? Who can you count on, to make sure they don't break down defensively, when the game's on the line? I think there's something to be said about that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how many one-score games they've been in this year. I know dating back to last year, they're 17-0 in one-score games, they being the Chiefs. But getting back to basketball here, I want to point out one team, Larry. We have one undefeated team. It's a Union girls basketball team. After tonight, they're now 17-0 overall, 10-0 in section play. These averages do not include tonight's game, and tonight's game was I believe it was a 54-16 win over Springdale. Overall, in the 16 previous games, they're outscoring their opponents 55.1 to 28.4. Not a game. They're outscoring their conference opponents, which is obviously a little bit less of a sample size, 57.8 to 21.0. So again, what do we know about the Union girls basketball team?
Well, we know they're way better than their competition.
Exactly.
Are they playing Class 1A?
They are.
Unfortunately, I've talked to a lot of coaches this year. It seems like in the girls' game, you're either real good or you're real bad. There's no in between. And Union's real good, and they're obviously not playing competition that are up to their skill level. So it begs the question: what happens when you get in a tight game? Because inevitably they will. If I'm not mistaken, there's a few Catholic schools in the 1A division that are probably pretty loaded talent-wise, and as a result, they're going to be dogfights down the road. So I'm sure Coach Nogue would not mind seeing his team in a few dogfights, and it may not happen in the section he's playing in, but as you know, there's always a game or two that you're allowed, or a scrimmage or an after season game that you're allowed to play once your section's over. He'll probably schedule some tough competition just to see where he's at. It would be a good idea. And because at the end of the day, you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know who I can count on when the chips are down.
Yeah, and they were very good last year, but they lost Kelly Cleaver to graduation. And on the surface, you might say, well, that's a lot of talent to lose, to graduation. But when you look at it, all these scores, 67-19, 60-21, 64-16, 64-15. None of these are competitive. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you how good this competition is that they're playing. Like you said, we're going to find out come playoff time. They're either the uncrowned WPIL and PIAA champion, and we're just biding time till the season's over, or business is going to pick up for them. One of the two.
Well, the one thing that Union has going for them is they have some girls with playoff experience, one of whom was our athlete of the week last year, Kylie Frustorfer. And I remember she had a big game in the Whippeal championship game last year. So you do have some of these girls who have playoff experience, who have been in close games, who have been in tight games, who have been in playoff games. And as I recall, the Union Whippeal championship game was a dogfight last year, as I remember.
I believe it went overtime.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's a big advantage for Coach Noga. He has some girls with experience up there, and that'll bode well come crunch time.
And lastly, Larry, we'll associate this. We'll kind of connect it with high school basketball. But as we talked off air, Pitt played Florida State about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Men's basketball down at Florida State, Tallahassee. Florida State won the game 82-70. It was 80-70, and the clock is running out. And the guy for Florida State's just dribbling it. And there's a guy standing underneath the basket for Florida State. He's unguarded. Nobody's guarding him. Pitt had obviously quit on the game. They figured, you know what the hell difference does it make if we lose by 10 or 12? And a guy fires a pass and he dunks it as the game ends, and Pitt does not like it. Hey, Larry, I'll ask you, at any level, what difference does it make if you lose by 10 or 12?
No, Ronnie. No. I'm an old school guy, so you're probably asking the wrong guy. But there's certain things that you shouldn't do at the end of a basketball game, and that's one of them. You gotta win with class. The game's over. You've already won. No need to rub salt into the wound. No need to dunk the ball at the end of the game. There just isn't. If that were my player, whether I'm a coach at the college level, the high school level, or the junior high level, I would tell him, don't do that. That is not acceptable. And that wasn't acceptable at Newcastle basketball. You're never going to see that at Newcastle. When the game's over, it's over. We're not going to rub salt in the wound. We're just not. It's who we are. It's part of the culture.
That's funny you say that, Larry. I could give you a really amusing example of Newcastle basketball. One that I don't think Ralph Blundo would be too thrilled with me giving an example of. It happened just a couple years ago.
Did somebody score at the end of a game?
Newcastle had 97 points, and the clock is running out, and a player for Newcastle, Ralph, was standing on the sideline. No shot.
Right, no shot.
No shot. And the player says he tees up a three, all net. Game ends, they hit the century mark.
Yeah, well, I bet that player heard it in the locker room. That's just not who we are. That's not what we do. And I think that's why Pitt was upset after that game. There's certain things you just don't do. If you are I hate to use this word, but if you have class as an organization, you don't do that.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I could think of, from Pitt's perspective, and they were upset about it, if that's the way you feel, then you got to tell your player, go get that guy. Go stand there next to him and make sure that he's not going to dunk that ball. And if he is, foul him hard as the clock is winding down. By not being anywhere remotely close to the guy, you're basically saying, you know what? We quit. We don't care if we lose by 10 or 12. Hit a laser pass to that guy and dunk it on us.
No, Ronnie, when the defense gives up, the game's over. There is one exception to that, and I experienced it. It was in a 9th grade game. We're playing at Montour, and the coach had alerted me that he had a special needs young man that was on his team. They were winning. The game was over. The game was over. It might have been an 8-point game. There's less than a minute to go, maybe less than 30 seconds. And I don't know that I was ever more proud of my team, because they recognized that this was a special needs player. And I'll never forget this. They let the young man shoot the ball, and he missed. And our guys got the rebound and gave it back to him. And he made the shot. And that's the only exception when the game is over and everybody knows the game is over, that a team should be trying to score. And I was proud of my guys that day. We won that game. We won that game in my heart because of the way my players acted at the end of the game. Even though we lost on the scoreboards, I was proud of my guys. You know, as a coach, maybe I did something right along the way to teach them that this is the way you're supposed to act in that situation.
Right. Okay, Larry. Anything else you'd like to say regarding high school basketball as we've come to our time limit this week?
Oh, check with me next week, man. We got a big game tomorrow, and it's a big game, and I think our guys are ready.
All right. Very good, Larry. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching us. Best of luck to you the rest of the season, to our student athletes and coaches. We'll be back here next week on Tip-Off as we get another week closer to the playoffs. He's Larry Kelly. I'm Ron Poniewasz. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next week.